We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking about John Wick Chapter 4. We watched the first one a while ago. Then we watched the second and third movie this week, actually. That way we can go see the new one. Wow. All I can say is wow. It is a 3-hour beast of a movie. We went and saw it in IMAX, and we haven't been to IMAX in a while, and my goodness, did it shock me how loud the movie was. The movie starts, this isn't a spoiler yet, but the movie starts with him like punching a punching bag, and just the sound that came from him punching the bag had me worried that my eardrums were about to blow. But I think you get used to it. You don't really hear about lawsuits with IMAX being too loud. Okay, so we're going to tell you about the movie. There isn't really a whole lot to go over just because really this movie was filled with action. And then we'll give you our thoughts. So the third movie, we kind of see the table basically turning against its own a bit because they had a feud with John Wick, and a couple of the people that are associated with John Wick were helping him a little bit in like masking his death, so to speak, like acting like they killed him when they really didn't, and the table isn't happy about that. And so basically it's kind of like a big chess match the whole movie, where the table is trying to hire like different bounty hunters to take out John Wick, whereas John Wick has his allies and they're trying to be at each other's throat all the time. So the first big action sequence is that John Wick is at a hotel. Was it a hotel? That was like a massive hotel.
Are you not starting with him assassinating one of the table leaders in the desert?
Well, that's what I meant by like they're at each other's throats,
Okay.
pretty much. Like, so John Wick, it's his drive to basically kill as many of them as he possibly can, whereas they're trying to just kill him. So, yes, he does kill one of the table members in the desert. I think it was the one from the third movie. At least
The one that made him chop off his ring finger and didn't have his ring to give back to him, yes.
right. So we do get that for the very, very beginning. But the first major set piece of action is at a hotel. Where John Wick is trying to go talk to one of his friends and try to see what he should do next, kind of a thing. Since, everybody's trying to hunt him down and kill him for millions of dollars.
Are you talking about in Japan?
Yes.
Okay, that is the Osaka Continental. So it is the Continental Hotel in Japan.
Okay, cool.
I think it's Japan. It might be China, but I'm pretty sure it's Japan.
So while he's there, the table Continental people are sending in some of their hired people to go and find John Wick, and they have a reason to believe that he's there. So they, have this little standoff with the manager of the Continental and the person that's there to try to find and kill John Wick, and then action erupts. And there's a pretty lengthy sequence between all the stuff here. But we also learn eventually that there is another hired, like a main character hired person that is trying to hunt down John Wick, which is Donnie. What was his last name? You told me in the car on the ride home. Donnie Yen? Is that what?
Yen, I think.
He's the guy in the middle of Sarah's picture there, and he is a blind assassin. So we kind of get like a blind, very, very good at martial arts type character, which was really cool to see. I feel like that was kind of, that next step that John Wick needed to add, some uniqueness to this film, as opposed to the last three, which have had a ton of action already in them. So how are they gonna up the ante? This is part of it. So he has this hired bounty hunter trying to take him out. I believe he's part of the table. Um,
So I'm just gonna interject here a quick sec. So the Marquis, which is the guy from um France, I believe, he is one of the table members, or he's representing the table. He's the guy who went over to Winston's hotel, so the Continental in New York. He killed Winston's concierge and bombed the Continental in New York. Those are kind of two little major things that you kind of skipped over there. That's why the Continental in Osaka, which I think it's Japan, but it might be China, they were nervous about their hotel because the Continental in New York was taken out. And the Marquis, so the French guy, he is the one who hired Kane, which is the
the
Donnie Yen
blind,
character you were talking about.
yeah,
So he's the
the
one who's
blind guy's name is Kane. Funny
yes,
stuff.
yes. And the Marquis is actually right here on my background. So you can see him. He's right in between Kane in the middle and John Wick on the side.
So in the mix of all this, John Wick does get away from, being killed at this continental area. But one of the big pieces is that his friend and his daughter, the friend and friend's daughter, which the daughter is the person on the far right of Sarah's picture, they try to take out the guy in the middle, the blind guy that is sent to take out John Wick. The friend gets killed, and the daughter gets shot in the mix of all the other action. He did not do it. The blind guy did not do it himself. It was just happened to get shot in the crossfire amongst the other battle pieces. So basically, John Wick meets up with Winston, and Winston tells him, you're not going to be able to outrun this. You're not going to be able to kill all of them. You're basically fighting Hercules' Hydra, where if you kill one, more appear. And he said the only way to basically end this endless killing is to challenge the Marquis to a duel and basically have his name cleared amongst all this other stuff. And so John Wick does agree to do this, but in order to do it, he has to have his family name with the table. And so he has to go and find some friends and become part of their family. I forget where that was. I think, was it in France?
Russia.
Russia? Okay, they're a Russian. Yeah, that makes sense. So he goes to go talk to some of his friends over there, but apparently they are not very friendly. They're upset about some of the repercussions that have happened to their group based on what is happening with John Wick. And they tell him, well, if you go and do this one thing for us, we'll let you be back in with the family. And so he goes to basically kill this dude that kind of runs like a huge nightclub. And the guy he's actually my favorite character from this movie because he was just really, really cool. They go there and they're like, well, because John Wick shows up, the guy that he's supposed to kill is at this poker table. The blind assassin is there, and there's also one other character we haven't mentioned that was brought up at the Continental in Japan. Is there's a separate character that is trying to get the bounty for John Wick, but he keeps waiting because he's waiting for the price to increase. As far as like, if I kill John Wick now, this is how much money I'll get. The more time that goes by, the higher that his bounty becomes. And so he's just kind of waiting it out to see the number that he wants to cash in on for John Wick's death. That guy's at the table as well. And so they're all kind of like, well, we all want to kill each other, so let's play a hand of poker to see. I think it was poker. It was probably something else. They were playing cards to see who would have the worst hand, and that person would be killed or something.
That guy that you brought up that is waiting for the hit number to get high enough, just for namesake, he's been going by Mr. Nobody.
Mr. Nobody, which is interesting because that was also a character I think in Fast and the Furious, Mr. Nobody. Um, trying to remember his name, like his real name, but it's escaping me. Anyways, back to John Wick. So John Wick gets the worst hand of the group, but we find out that the guy that's running the club that John Wick is supposed to be killing is a cheater because he has five number twos that he pulls up. And so they just, break out into trying to kill each other anyways. Um, and we get a very, very long action sequence of basically John Wick taking out this dude's henchman and then eventually killing the guy, which was hilarious, was probably the part that I laughed the most at because when he dies, he's got like a golden grill on his teeth. And he one of the things that he keeps doing throughout the movie is that, or his little section of the movie, is he has like a signature laugh that he keeps on doing. And so when he actually dies, his death is he falls to his death and he lands on his face on some stairs, which, like, I'm assuming snaps his neck. And when John Wick flips him over, he's like grinning, like with his grill showing to John Wick. So it was kind of funny to see, even though when he died, he kind of had like a laughing look to his face.
This section of the movie is probably one of the only ones where I really had a beef with it, just because there was so much action going on, which was awesome, but it was in the middle of a nightclub and very few people stopped dancing. So, like, if there's people killing each other right next to me, I'm out of here.
Which is kind of funny because you mentioned that. I was kind of wondering the same thing. Like, is this just so normal that people don't want to run away? But like when the gunfight was over, they're all running out of the club, like, oh my God, something's going on. But yet they weren't doing it when it was all happening. Maybe the music was just so loud that they couldn't hear it, but at the same time, I don't know. That's just one of our beefs, I guess. It didn't make sense, but you have to suspend your belief. And this is honestly not the only part where you have to suspend your belief. Uh, do you want to cover what's next? Like how he goes back to the family
Sure.
and get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so one of the things the family said after killing this guy was that he had to bring proof, right? So he somehow takes off one of this guy's gold tooth caps and brings that to the family as proof that he killed the guy. And to be part of the family, he also needs to have the family crest, which I guess is like being branded on your arm. So him and the leader lady of that family get branded, and he is now Jardani again. Um, so he has his family ticket again, if you will. And now that he has that, Winston goes and brings the Marquis a paper basically challenging him to a duel. And of course, he doesn't want to accept this challenge because, well, it's John Wick. But eventually he does because he doesn't really have much of another choice. But Winston throws in his own terms into the deal of not only is John Wick going to be free, but I also want my Continental back, and the table is going to pay for it. So eventually he does agree to this duel. I believe the next scene that we see is them with, I almost want to call him the high priest, but I don't know what his technical term is. He's a guy that's kind of like the head of the table, or like the law enforcer for the table, if you will. Um, Not that he has anything to do with regular law enforcement. He's just for the table. Uh, but they've got all these tiles, and so there's kind of like playing war, right? Whoever has the higher number gets to decide what is it, the time for the duel, the weapons, and the location. So winds up being John Wick wins two of the three, so he gets to pick that they're going to fight with pistols, and they're going to fight at the specific church that's in France. And then the other guy got to win what time the duel will be. John Wick wanted it right now. The other guy said it's going to be sunrise, and that's kind of important a little bit later because they both agreed to the terms. The Marquis being the rich scaredy cat that he is, who constantly is changing the terms for everybody that's working for him, forces Mr. Kane to sit in as his duelist, if you will. Mr. Kane, the only reason why he's really doing this stuff is because we know that he has a daughter, and that him and his daughter's lives are kind of at stake as long as he is working for the table, and he just wants to be free also. So he accepts being the duelist so that he can be free with his daughter. Um, so now we gotta wait till dawn, right? But this guy, the Marquis, he's such a weasel that John Wick goes and disperses with so John Wick disperses with Winston, which was the old Continental owner runner, right? And the king, I believe that's just what he goes by. He's this guy. Um, he kind of runs the homeless shelters or the homeless uh pyramid scheme, if you will, in the movie. But they work together to get him a nice new suit made of like expensive Kevlar and stuff, so it's ultra bulletproof, so that he can survive the night. Because the Marquis has upped the price um, of the hit on John Wick. He doesn't want him to make it to the duel because he knows if he makes it to the duel, he's probably not going to win. So he wants John Wick to die before the duel even happens. So we've got a huge amount of, John Wick just kicking butt because there's so many people coming after him, as he's trying to get to the church basically from, I don't know, midnight to 6 a.m. or something like that because he has to make it there by 6:03 for the sunrise. So this is crazy. He's fighting in buildings. He's doing extreme car chases. He's riding on a motorcycle at one point. I can't tell you how many times he got hit by a car and just got up.
Well, the thing that got me was when he was done at the building, he jumped out of like the fourth story of the building, smacked a car, and then landed on the pavement. I'm just like, I don't know.
Didn't even break an ankle or a pinky or nothing.
No, he definitely didn't break the one of his ring finger.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting how he made it through all that. I'm gonna say virtually unharmed. He's kind of out of breath, but that was a lot of butt whooping. Um, One thing during that scene, it was all very cool, but I'm just kind of glazing over it to not, bore everybody with individual teeny little details. But one thing that I will pick out from this is um, Mr. Nobody. So Mr. Nobody is, he wants this prize, the money prize, right? So he's also trying to go after John Wick during this stuff. And he has a dog that's kind of like his kind of like in the third movie, how the one lady had a dog that helped her kill people. This guy does too. And one of the other table members or like assassins that work for the table at one point trying to go after John Wick is about to shoot Mr. Nobody's dog. Well, as we all know, you don't mess around with John Wick and his dogs or anybody's dogs for that matter. So instead of shooting Mr. Nobody, John Wick shoots the guy who's about to shoot the dog, so he saves the dog's life. And so it's kind of almost like a mutual understanding of, hey, you saved my dog's life. I'm not going to shoot you right now. I'll wait and get you later, or something like that. Um, so they break off, and eventually we get to this giant staircase. And at the very top of the stairs, that's where the church is. And you almost can't even see the top of the stairs just because there's so many stairs. And he's only got like 10 minutes till dawn. Would you like to take it back?
Sure. I also, before I progress the story part of it, we were talking about like how it's kind of unbelievable that John Wick was surviving being hit by cars. So did the dog. The dog got hit by a car and it just bounced right back up at one point. And I was just like, wow. All
Yeah,
right.
that was a tough dog.
Even the dog has plot armor. It's okay. So we get to this section where there's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 flights of stairs or something, and they're like all going in one direction. And so there's like one last gang type group of people that John Wick has to deal with, and he gets all the way up the stairs, taking everybody out. And then when he gets to the top, he runs into somebody like another group, and it's the table guy that he shot. He didn't kill him when he was trying to kill the dog, because that was the guy that was at the top of the stairs. So he knocks John Wick all the way down these stairs, and I mean it's to the point where it's comedic, and there was actually people laughing in the theater about how far he was falling down the stairs. But now he has to do the stairs all over again. But this time, um, the blind assassin guy,
Mr.
he
Kane.
Mr. Kane, he shows up. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. Mr. Kane shows up and partners with John Wick this time. Just because I feel like, oh, it's because they met at the church before all this was going down, and they were having a little understanding of what was going to happen with the duel. Because they were going to have to fight each other. And
I think Mr. Kane knows too that if John doesn't make it up there to do the duel, then
yeah,
Kane can't beat him. And if Kane can't beat him, then he's not free either. So that's why he's like, John, I need you to make it up them steps.
right. So that's what I'm saying. I think there's like an understanding between the two of we need to get up there together because even he has to be there at the certain time.
Yep.
So I think John Wick said there was like 2 or 3 minutes until sunrise, and so they just march up these stairs, taking out a whole other group of people. Eventually, we do see the dude from the table that's been following them this whole time, like ever since the hotel or the Continental in the very beginning. He finally does die. Uh, it's
Thanks to
interesting.
Mr. Nobody.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mr. Nobody's dog likes to like bite people in the crotch, and he just destroys his crotch in this one, and eventually just pops him with a gun. Um, so Mr. Kane and John Wick eventually get to the top, and they eventually show up just in time for their duel. And they have like a very ceremonious type duel setting. Like even the ground that they're walking on for this duel has like things in the ground that mark the paces that they're supposed to be doing. So each person in the duel gets a pistol, and then they have to go back to back and then do 30 paces away from each other. And they have these markings on the ground that mark where 30 paces should be about. And then they each get one bullet, they fire, and then, if the person dies, it's over. If both of them are still alive, then they take 10 paces towards each other, which again has another marker. They would stop, get another bullet, rinse, repeat until someone's dead. And so they they have their duel. They start with the 30 paces apart, and they both clip each other, like in the arm. And so nobody's died yet. So they take 10 paces forward, and then um, they each get another bullet. They shoot again, and they don't clip each other this time, but they do like it's not just grazing them. They actually hit each other pretty good the second time, but they're still alive. So they have the third one. So they come up 10 more paces, and they're very, very close to one another. So they get their bullet ready. And when the guy who's conducting this whole thing says fire, only Mr. Kane fires a bullet that we like. You kind of hear gunfire, but only one of them is actually shot. He gets John Wick pretty good, like gets him down a little gut region, and John Wick falls to the ground. And so the how do you pronounce it? The M
The Marquis.
Marquis. He comes over and he takes the gun from Mr. Kane and is like, you and your daughter are good to go. Uh, he's gonna finish him off, like finish off John Wick.
He wants the glory of the kill.
Right. So he takes the pistol and he loads a bullet in there and he goes up to John Wick, and I forget who says it, but somebody says
Winston.
Winston. He says he didn't fire a shot, and so John Wick has one bullet in the chamber and pops the Marquis and gets a very, very good shot to the head on him. Which is interesting because I had thought like, is this gonna be like dirty play? Like, is because one of the things that the Marquis has been doing is that he's not really playing by the rules in all these different instances. Like he's trying. There's a couple of times where he's talking to,
Mr. Nobody.
no, you just said it a second.
Winston.
Winston. Thank you. there's a couple of times where he's talking to Winston throughout the movie, and he's kind of seeming like he is trying to run his part of the table in a way that doesn't respect the rules of the table and the continent and all that stuff. And so I had wondered if, like in this instance, he took the gun and he was going to put a bullet in there. I didn't know what the rules were, like if you were still alive after the, you know, three sets of paces. But he grabs the gun and he goes up to John Wick as if he's going to destroy him. And because John Wick still had one in the chamber, he could still fire it. And also, because at least this is my interpretation, because they got the Marquis took the gun from Mr. Kane, he is now the one that is responsible for his representation in the duel. So John Wick shoots the Marquis, which was kind of like a good situation for everybody because John didn't want to die. Mr. Kane didn't want to die. They actually, I don't think they really wanted to kill each other. It was just a business thing, like it wasn't anything personal. So they kind of
They're
had this,
they were old time friends and kept calling each other brother.
right. So they found a way to be able to have John be successful with the duel and Mr. Kane to be alive. Well, both of them alive at this point. So Mr. Kane and his daughter are good to go. John is, all his issues are done with the table. He's been wiped clean. But we have a little bit of a problem. Well, also, Mr.
Winston.
Winston, I was just about to say that Winston gets his control over his continental area again. But there's one big thing, and this is probably the biggest spoiler of the movie, and we don't know really what to think of it. So John was shot 3 times. I should probably point this out. When they do the duel, they have to take off all of their clothing that makes them bulletproof. Like they cannot wear any clothing that would give them an advantage over the other person. And why that's important is because when John was shot 3 times, that last one really got him good. So he takes a couple of steps down the stairs in front of the church and he sits down and he has like this little thought of his wife. And I forget what he says about his wife, but it's kind of like a hello or a I'll see you soon type deal. And he just falls over on the steps. And our next shot is back, I want to say in New York.
Probably.
And the king and Winston are at John's grave. And so we're led to believe that when John fell over, that he actually killed over. He was dead. So don't really know what to think if he's actually dead or if they're trying to fake that he's dead so that the world believes he is. I guess we'll have to see if they end up making a 5th one. However, there was one last thing in this film. Sarah, what was the last thing that happened in this movie?
Yeah, so there is an after credit scene. It is quite a ways into the credits. So if you feel like you're crazy for sitting there for so long because there's people leaving in the theater, hang tight. It's coming. There is a after credit scene of Mr. Kane, and we know from the beginning of the movie that his daughter is like a street performer of a violinist or a violaist. So we see him bringing flowers to go see his daughter. And before he gets there, we see, and I don't know her name. She's one of the ones that I kind of missed, but the Continental manager from the Osaka Continental. His daughter was the concierge. So the manager guy died. The daughter was the one who got hit, and she's right here on my screen, on the background. Rena?
Or that's the actress's name. Sorry, Akira.
So she wants to avenge her father's death because Mr. Kane killed her father, right? So we see Mr. Kane bringing his daughter flowers. I don't think his daughter's seen him yet, but right before, he's about to give her these flowers, we see, what'd you say her name was again?
Akira.
Akira. Thank you. Um, she has a switchblade that she pops out and she's approaching Mr. Kane. And that's it. So we're kind of led to believe that she's about to cut him or something. I mean, we got to remember that Mr. Kane's blind, so he's not at this point expecting anything like crazy like that to happen. So I have a hard time believing he'd be ready to defend himself in broad daylight when he's a free man, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting. Whatever that may lead to, even if it leads to nothing because it's just our imagination.
Yeah.
If
I
they don't
feel,
make another movie, I mean.
I
But
feel like
I have
I
a hard
heard.
time believing that they're not going to make another movie.
Yeah, I feel like I heard that there was rumor that there's a fifth one in pre-production, so it makes it interesting. Like, yo, you killed him. So at least that's what they want us to believe. I really hate it when they try to play that card of, oh, he's dead, but if we can make money off of a fifth movie, we're just gonna say he wasn't dead. You know what I mean?
My personal thoughts here are that his death was faked so that he could be free from the table. And anybody who might think that his death is, or him being alive is unjust, right? And it's to the point where the king, this guy, has John Wick's dog, right? Because the old concierge got killed, so he can't look after the dog. Um, so I think John Wick's faking his death, and I have reason to believe that Akira is going to kill Mr. Kane, and John Wick is going to try to avenge his death by taking out Akira.
Could be.
That's kind of my idea of how they could fit in another movie.
I wish they would have done something kind of like in The Dark Knight Rises for Batman, where the world was led to believe that Batman was killed, but then um his name escaped Alfred. Alfred sees Bruce uh just living his life, but nobody knows who he is, kind of a thing. So they actually show that he's alive. So I wish
Yeah.
they would have done that here, because like I said, if they play that card where he's dead, but they have no indication of that he could be alive, but then they just say he is alive, I don't like that. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I feel like they could just, tailor the movie another way and start a whole new set with the Akira and the Kane people. Do you think Kane's daughter is blind?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure because only the couple times that we saw her playing, she had her eyes mostly closed, like a lot of musicians do when they're playing. So I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing a cane or anything nearby for her.
Yeah. What'd you think of the movie?
I really liked it. I thought it was very action-packed. I think the soundtrack was pretty good. It really kept it high beat, high energy. The movie, although being 3 hours, moved at a really good pace. Um, I feel like the structure of the movie in terms of, the like the actual storyline, uh, there was enough story to keep it going, so it wasn't just nonsense killing, but there wasn't too much story that kind of dulled it down. So it was a good balance. Um, there was some interesting new characters and new fighting styles that were introduced, between that poker guy with the weird gold grill. Oh, he was like a greasy slime ball. He creeped me out. He kind of almost reminded me of the Penguin from Batman a little bit, just the way he was, so unusual and kind of odd. Um, kind of like that, like greasy slime ball way about him, like where he's almost like constantly sweating. Uh, the blind guy, Mr. Kane, his acting and fighting I thought was pretty cool. There was some of it where, it's kind of hard to believe that uh it's almost like they were giving him a handicap because he was blind. Like I feel like there was a handful of times he definitely could have been killed because he wouldn't see a gun pointed at him, but somehow he always survived. But to be
Interesting,
fair,
interesting choice of words.
what?
You said they gave him a handicap, and
Oh,
he's
well,
handicapped.
I didn't mean it like that. My apologies. I
Wham.
I feel like they kind of gave him a little bit of an upper hand in that he had plot armor. But to be fair, John Wick also has the same thing where there were a handful of times he could have and probably should have been killed, but somehow he wasn't. Such as falling off that like 4-story building window and landing on a van and then rolling off and landing on the concrete. And he did the same thing at the nightclub where he fell off like a second-story balcony and hit a post, which in most other movies would break somebody's back. And then he fell on the ground, which was cement or brick or something like that, and he just got right back up and fighting. So, I mean, if you allow yourself to ignore some of these laws of physics that would normally really injure somebody, it was a really pretty good movie. Um, I think my only beefs with it, or like things that I didn't like so much, would be, I mentioned the nightclub scene where the dancers didn't really seem bothered that there was people firing guns and killing each other right next to them. That seemed a little unusual or unbelievable, especially since they all sprinted off at the end. And then the second thing, because I'm just ignoring the fact that a lot of people should have died when they didn't. Um, the second thing I was going to mention was the ending to the movie. I'm not super happy with the whole John Wick just kind of keeling over on the stairs as if he's passed out, but just needs some medical attention. And then we're just supposed to believe that he's dead because we see his grave. That I feel like that could have used an extra 30 seconds of, either he's not dead or he is dead or something, because it again, it seemed like he was just passing out and not that he was actually dead.
Yeah. I was telling Sarah as we were leaving the movie theater, one of the things that Winston and the King were talking about is they were like, so where do you think he's at? Heaven or hell? And I told Sarah I was waiting for one of them to say hell, and then we'd see John Wick in Hell, Michigan, because there is a city called Hell in Michigan. Uh, I thought the movie was pretty good. Um, it didn't feel like 3 hours to me, just because it moved pretty well. There really wasn't any dull moments. It was, high octane action and then just enough story to keep you invested, and then more high octane action and then rinse repeat all the way to the end. Um, I did have um, oh, one other thing that I thought was really cool about the movie. So with Mr. Kane being blind, they kind of played into some of the ways that he can be effective, even though he's blind. And there was one scene when they were at the Continental building in the very beginning in Japan where he like put these doorbell sensors along the kitchen. And so every time that one of his enemies would walk past it, you'd hear ding dong, like the doorbell to a house, and then he'd pop right up and pop them. So it would just kind of tell him the general direction of whoever the person is he's supposed to shoot. So they just,
Another really cool thing he did was the flash grenades.
oh yeah, because he's blind.
He did flash grenades to make everybody else blind. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was kind of along the lines of, ha, now you're blind too.
I remember what he said, but I'm not going to say it on here.
Okay.
um, yeah, like I said, I liked it. There was a couple of nitpicky things like plot armor, and I there's a sense of suspension of disbelief where I'm okay with like all the crazy actions sequences and whatnot. But I will say, like when he falls out, jumps out of a 4-story building and is able to just stand up and walk away, that's something that kind of pulls me out a little bit. I feel like they didn't even need that stuff. Like if they could have just, uh, found a way for him to leave the building instead of just jumping out, I would have been fine with it, even if he had to do 2 more minutes of gunfighting back to the bottom of the stairwell. Um, yeah, just little things like that that can bother me, but in the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty good movie. I'd recommend it. And if you really like loud action movies, see it in IMAX because my goodness, was it loud.
That
Uh,
music was banging.
the music was very good, and Sarah likes to play Pistol Whip. It was very, very much like watching a movie of Pistol Whip, with between the music and the gunplay that was going on there. Well, that was our discussion about John Wick 4. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are trying our best to put out more movie discussions out on the channel, so that if your notifications are turned on, you'll be notified when the next ones come out. There's a handful of movies this summer that we're looking forward to quite a bit. I think we're going to see Mario soon, so look forward to that. If you like this video, drop us a like and also drop us a comment letting us know if you saw John Wick and what you thought of it. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.